As I recently talked about, body cam footage from the day of Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt's arrest has been released, and the footage is quite telling and also disturbing, as we hear from the third member of the ConneXions group, Pam Botcher, who was the one who had Ruby's 2 other children the day of the arrest. Footage shows her reaction to hearing about their arrest, as well as her describing how Ruby's children had spent their day with her, and her own explanation of the ConneXions group. The whole interaction is truly something to dissect, and news outlets have been doing so for the last week. Jodi and Ruby were the main stars of the ConneXions YouTube page, and so to learn of this third member and to hear the things that she had to say about the situation has been extremely interesting and some say telling. She didn't seem too distraught hearing the news of the arrest of Ruby. At the time, they had said to her that it was Ruby and Kevin who had been arrested. That information wasn't true, as we now know that Kevin was never arrested. It was just Jodi and Ruby. But as police were trying to communicate with each other and locate all of the Franke children, the story wasn't quite straightened out yet, and this is what they were telling Pam in the body cam footage that was released. Ruby had called Pam that day saying she had a family emergency and needed her to go pick up her 2 daughters and take them to her house. Pam had the 2 girls in her care at the time of Jodi and Ruby's arrest, and when police arrived to her home, they placed her in handcuffs and questioned her about what she knew, how she knew Ruby, how she got the girls to the house, all of that. Her husband explained to the officer that Ruby called Pam and asked her if she could pick up the girls, and Pam said yes, and that she needed some help anyway. Pam's husband said that Ruby said they could come over and help, and he explained the girls had been helping them clean because they had guests coming from Costa Rica later that night. Pam also explained to the officer that the girls had been helping around the house. They had come over willingly. She said that she made them scrub the floors and the girls vacuumed, but claimed they did that on their own free will.
So as long as she's not tied up and bound because you
I did make her scrub
do something,
I did make her scrub the floor, and they vacuumed and stuff because I have company coming tonight from Costa Rica.
Okay.
So, but she did it of her own free will. We had lunch.
Yeah.
We went to Rolly's farm and had ice cream.
Okay.
So.
KUTV2 News Salt Lake City shared the footage of her saying this, and people didn't react well to hearing it, saying she made them scrub the floor even though the phone call from Ruby alone had indicated there was a family emergency. These people are mentally bankrupt. Why would you even let your friends' children clean for you? That is not normal. When I watch my friends and siblings' kids, we play games, watch movies, and do homework. The one thing I don't have them do is scrub my floors and clean my house. Shameless behavior. Later, body cam footage shows DCFS questioning Pam about how she knows Ruby and the kids, if she's ever interacted with them prior to this, if Ruby had asked her to get the girls before, and she said no. In the past, it's been her going to their house to teach the girls how to make jam, to sew, or they would get together if the kids had a play or something. She then said that the girls had come to her house before, though, to clean and do chores and weeding and things like that. So this wasn't the first time that she had them come over and clean for her. She later said that she met the family through ConneXions and described it as a life skills program, and said that the program teaches people to be honest, responsible, and humble, which, I mean, hearing her say that as she's being questioned by DCFS because Ruby and Jodi were arrested is truly a sight to see. I mean, to hear that these people who were arrested for hurting children were teaching others to be honest, responsible, and humble, like in their minds, that's what they thought that they were doing. It just sounds ridiculous. But for those who have been paying attention to ConneXions over the last few years and seen what exactly they were saying in the videos trying to teach about this, know that their tactics were very harsh and they were leading people in the wrong direction. They made people feel bad, they gave awful advice, and they were constantly getting called out for their teachings. Everything they said was just so extreme, and they were constantly judging the people that were coming to them for help, making them feel just so horrible about themselves. And it just seemed like any advice that they were giving to parents would lead children to hate their parents and also have people isolate from their extended family members. Like, that was the advice that they were giving, and it was just always so questionable. But somehow they still had followers and people who looked up to them as a source of information, a place to get help for their troubled marriages or kids, and it's sad that people really did actually listen to them. And it's scary to know that Pam was a part of this program as well. I mean, she has a profile on the ConneXions site listing her as the president of ConneXions Foundation. But to hear her so casually talk about it to DCFS is interesting, calling it their program as if she isn't listed as the freaking president on there. But later, when the Springville police interviewed her, she explained that when she went to pick up the girls, she told them that their mom said there was a family emergency, and she told Pam that they could come and help her clean that day, and they said okay, and they went with her. And once again, I'm gonna say that for it to be that casual for her to make them do chores after telling them there's a family emergency is crazy behavior. These people who run a business together where they give parents advice on how to raise their children are literally willing to give distressed children chores to do. Literally all because Pam had guests coming from Costa Rica. Like, this is crazy. She prioritized having a clean home instead of being like, let me make sure these children are all right because there's a family emergency and their mom can't be there for them. Like, seriously, what the heck? And these beliefs clearly are what landed 2 of them behind bars because they have no idea how to actually raise children or handle them at all. There's zero care. But Pam was later asked if Ruby gave her a plan of sorts of whether or not the girls were going to stay the night with Pam or what. But in her words, she said that she planned on putting them home tonight. I think she was going to just leave them there with or without Ruby because that seemed to be something that a lot of people have mentioned as this case has been going on, is that Ruby would leave the kids home for days at a time unattended. So I feel like Pam would have just dropped them off at the house, whether Ruby was there or not, family emergency or not, she just would have left them there. That's how she was making it seem to police, though, that was her plan. I mean, previously we had heard that Sherry last year had even called the police because she was hearing that her siblings were left home unattended. So I'm sure Pam thought that this was just normal for the kids to be home alone. The 911 call was released of Sherry, and she said, "Hi, my name is Sherry Frankie. My 4 younger siblings are living in Springville, and my neighbors have been telling me they have been let home alone for about 4 or 5 days." Neighbors had also previously spoken with NBC, coming out to say that Ruby would leave the children home alone, and they wrote, "Neighbors said that Frankie began spending more time away from her home in Springville after she got involved with Hildebrand's life counseling service ConneXions, which has been criticized online for the way it teaches parenting to its followers. The teachings include prioritizing the organization's principles of truth over a person's children." The male neighbor recalled how Frankie's youngest daughter, Eve, who was approximately 10 years old, would wander the neighborhood while her mother was away for prolonged periods after she kicked Kevin Frankie out of the house. Eve would look for companions in the community, the neighbor said. The neighbor said it did not seem like she was attending school. The Nebo School District, which represents that Springville area, did not immediately return a request for comment. She would just knock on your door and say, "Hi, can your kids play?" he recalled. And we were like, "Well, they're at school. They won't be home for 3 or 4 hours." And she'd be like, "Oh, wait," he added, "she's like this lost child." So to hear her say that she was going to drop them off, I mean, we can already see she wasn't too worried about there being a family emergency. And imagine if she did, because the way that they raided the house was violent. The door was knocked down in this house. They were looking for those girls since at the time of the arrest, they were only able to find 2 children, and they were looking for the other 2 that Ruby had under her care. And they had gone to Ruby's house, busted down the door, guns drawn. It was a very scary situation had they actually been inside that house. That is a horrifying sight to see. It was just so intense. And I mean, rightfully so. It was a very intense and important situation trying to locate those 2 girls given what had happened and what they had witnessed with the other 2 children under Ruby's care. But just so scary to think about them having to witness that. And also if Pam had like pulled up to that, it's just crazy to think about, honestly. Everything about this and what she had to say, her talking about ConneXions so casually, her talking about this family emergency so casually, her talking about them scrubbing the floors for her so casually. There's just so many opinions and feelings that have come from the body cam footage that has recently been revealed from this day, and also the footage that we talked about recently from Kevin. It's unclear if they will be releasing footage of Ruby and Jody's arrest. People are certainly curious about that, but as of right now, this is what what has been released. I will let you guys know if anything further comes out. I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye, guys.